On Jazz for the 7th of November. The Jazz beat the 76ers. Rudy was unbelievable. Donovan lives in the mid-range, but can you actually live in the mid-range? We'll talk about it, plus take your questions on a live edition of Locked on Jazz, all coming up next. Pow! How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is the Thursday live edition of Locked on Jazz. You can follow me on Twitter at Locked on Sports. We are live on Locked on Live on Twitch, on YouTube, on Facebook. We are also live on Periscope on Locked on Sports. We are live on Instagram on DLock09. So thank you very much wherever you might be joining us. And if you're listening to it as a podcast on a regular Locked on Jazz feed, that's why the audio is a little bit different. Excited to chat with you today. Want to run through last night's game and give you all of it. If you're new to the show, catching it live for the first time, want to just be a part of it, this is Locked on Jazz. It is a daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, hopefully making it a lot more fun to be a Jazz fan, whether you listen to it on the radio with me and Ron, or if you listen to Craig and Thurl or Matt, and you get to hear what, hopefully we give you some insight and information that makes it better to watch the game, go to the game, and do all that. So thanks very much for tuning in. We do this every single day. You can subscribe. You can leave reviews. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which has a daily podcast for every NBA, NFL team, growing list of MLB, college, and NHL teams, plus the national show, Hollinger and Duncan, plus a daily Locked On NBA show. And John Hollinger is the hour-long guest on Rejecting the Screen this week. So that should be a lot of fun to grab that edition of Rejecting the Screen as well. All right, let's get into it. Good win by the Jazz last night. Obviously, the big story was the rebounding. The Jazz had not been rebounding well. In fact, the Jazz are really, they're 5-3. They're one rebound away from being 6-2, having lost to the Clippers and the Lakers in LA. I think we would think that's okay. So really, if we, and haven't done exactly what we think they could do yet. I don't think anyone's comfortable entirely with the way they're playing right now. So that to me is a pretty darn good sign of where the Jazz are and what they're capable of. The fact that they're one rebound away from being 6-2. Sure, Ben Simmons got hurt last night. That certainly changed the game and altered the way that the game was being played and the game performed. Philadelphia's got a weakness or two. I thought the Jazz did a nice job of exposing it. But the big story was the Jazz won the rebounding battle against the number one rebounding team in the league, both offensively and defensively. Mike Conley saying that he was told he'd give a $100 fine for every box out he didn't do, and said to Tony Parks after the game that he boxed out more on that night than probably any night of his entire NBA career. So that's kind of cool to hear him say that. A lot of questions are flying in. I super appreciate all of you that are on board right now. I do have some things I want to touch on in the first segment of today's show, and then we'll get to your questions for segment 2 and 3. One of them, Rudy, was great last night again. And you know what? Rudy popped off a little bit. I wanted the ball more. It's probably not. I don't know if he was entirely in line there, but boy, when Rudy talks, he ends up being great. 14 screen assists last night, opening up for 30 points. I actually would like to see, if we're going to get 14 screen assists, I'd like to see about 34, 36 points off that. It means we're not getting enough threes off those screens. Hopefully we can find a way to do that. But listen to these numbers. The NBA.com stats box score now has who you were matched up against in a ball game. Tobias Harris last night was 0 for 3 when guarded by Gobert. Al Horford was 1 for 2. Joel Embiid was 3 for 10, certainly got to the free throw line a lot and deserves credit for that. So a combined 4 for 15 for players last night that were matched up against Rudy Gobert. Contrast that to Joel Embiid, who's thought of as probably the other elite defensive big in the league. Bojan Bogdanovic was 2 for 4. Gobert was 2 for 3. Donovan was 3 for 3. Joe Ingles, I think, was 2 for 3. It's a pretty big difference, maybe 2 for 2. Right, so the Jazz guys combined to go 9 for 12, while the 76ers guys went 4 for 15 against Gobert. That was the difference in the 2-point game. Not to mention Rudy Gobert's 14 screen assists. So that's pretty awesome. Last night by Rudy against Joel Embiid. That's a good win. I haven't built the road to 50 yet, or the road to 55. I'll have to do that. It's going to be a little tainted. I'll have to make sure I give us a loss in Sacramento. The other one last night is shot distribution. So there's some good and some not so good last night. You know, I always want to talk about shot distribution. But I actually think that last night is the best example I can ever give of why you can't live in the mid-range. I'm a shot distribution guy. I believe in it passionately. I don't mean to be a jerk and be endless about it, but the people are being suckered into the mid-range in the NBA right now, and it can't work. The numbers and the math. Brett Brown and I talked about this for a long time afterwards, and he's like, I like to argue the analytics. And I finally said to him, I said, but you don't really argue the analytics, Brett, because defensively you play that way. So last night, the Jazz half-court offense was in the 5th percentile of all offensive performances all year long, okay? So they were not good offensively last night. They won the game last night because they got out in transition a little bit more. Not very much, but when they got in transition, they were great. 1.5 points per play. And they got some putbacks, Tony Bradley. The Jazz took 34 mid-range shots last night. Felt like they were great, right, Donovan? We went 11 of 34 on the mid-range last night. Now, a lot of this is because we were 2 of 16 in the paint non-restricted. So on the long twos, where Donovan was nailing it last night, we were 9 of 18. You can kind of live like that, right? 9 of 8. Let's like, if it's your only shot all night, it's not going to work, and you never go to the free throw line with it. So Donovan was great last night. Like, came out, busted 4 of the first 5 long twos, opened up the floor. There's a level in this game where you've got to take those shots, right? We're not saying you're never going to take mid-range shots. But rather than taking 33% of your shots as mid-range, I'd like you to take about 20% of your shots as mid-range as a team. The 76ers are tough. They're the second best team in the league at taking away the three. So this is not an easy game to get this done against. But even last night, short mid-range, some of that's Rudy, some of that's Conley. We were 2 of 16. So overall, our mid-range game last night was 11 of 34. Our long two was 9 of 18. Okay, that's better than actually the rest of our game. If we're at 1 point of possession in the half court, that's actually not bad. Like, if you take, according to Cleaning the Glass, if you take transition out of the game and you average 1 point per half court possession, you'd be equal to the Toronto Raptors right now, who are the best offensive team in the NBA in the half court. Interesting note of that, by the way. 5 best offensive teams in the half court right now are Toronto, Milwaukee, Phoenix, Portland, and Dallas. We're 17th at 91.6. So if you do go hit 50% of your mid-range shots in the half court, that's not bad. Let's look at Donovan's shot chart last night, because I thought Donovan was great. Let me make sure. My point on this is that Donovan was great last night. And at one point in last night's game, as great as he was, he had taken 23 shots and scored 23 points. That's not great. So Donovan last night, on long twos, hit 5 long twos and missed 5. Okay? So that's pretty damn good. If Donovan wants to shoot 50%, which he's over for the year, on long twos, if a big's dropping, and Donovan takes that shot, we probably got to be all right with it. But he's got to hit 50%. Like, it's incredibly hard. He then went 1 of 4 from 3, which isn't great. He needs to be better than that. And then he went 0 for 5 in the paint non-restricted area. This is where last year he took a lot of shots. And he was the second worst shooter behind Josh Jackson, who's not in the NBA, of guys who took that shot. So I am all in for Donovan pulling up for a long two with some space and hitting that shot. It's when he gets caught in the middle that's really the problem. And then late in the game, he was brilliant. He was brilliant and went to the basket and drew fouls. He is developing into such a great player. This is actually really meant as all of this is a positive about Donovan, because he's just developing into such a great player. And he approached the game last night with such brilliance. He opened the game hitting the pull-ups. Then he developed a little. Then he had to adjust a little bit and then he went to the free throw line other than not making him. But by the end of the night last night, when Donovan hits 5 of 10 from his mid-range, he does miss all those short ones, and Donovan takes 19 two-point shots and 4 three-point shots last night. He scores 24 points on 23 shot attempts. He has 26 scoring opportunities last night, and he scores 24 points. That's not great. That's not efficient. And my point on that is, so he's going to have to evolve into some things here. And he will, because he's great at it. But pull-up 2 is great. Can we set that pick a little higher and have that be a pull-up 3 if the big's dropping? And can he make that pull-up 3? That's not been a shot that's been a great strength for him. That's going to be, from watching him right now, that's the next step. But his game to me last night, where he was brilliant and yet ends up at kind of a point a shot, is an example to me of how incredibly difficult it is if you live in the mid-range to be efficient. Donovan is 5 of 15 on the off-the-bounce 3 so far this year. He's 8 of 16 on the catch and shoot. Last year, he was exactly the same, 33%. So, frankly, if he's 33% on off-the-bounce pull-up 3, and he's 50% for 2, that's the exact pull-up 2, that's the exact same thing. Can he get a little bit better on that mid-range? And can he really, truly stay, if we're really honest about this, at 50%? The amount of guys that shoot 50% on long 2s in the NBA are Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. That's about it. I mean, there just are not a lot of guys who've done that. So far this year, Donovan is an incredible 21 of 39 on the long 2. It's awesome. So that's what I thought last night in a lot of regards to that one. All right, let's get you to your questions. I want to introduce a new sponsor to the program today. Pretty excited to have him. Sarah was really neat. I talked to her the other day for a long time. She's a huge listener to the program. It's called Sunprint Solutions. So, what is Sunprint Solutions? Sunprint Solutions is printing, multiple versions of all printings, high quality, quick turn, really good quality, high, not, churning stuff. They work with Zions Bank. They work with the U of U. They work with Little Caesars. They work with Ancestors.com. They work with Chums. They can print anything imaginable. Chums, they're doing a little tag that you hang them on. Zion Banks, they're doing all their financials because they have HIPAA certified, and so all of the personal data is information. I asked Sarah, why are you advertising on Locked On Jazz? Sunprint Solutions. And she said, well, one, because I think all of your clients, Murdoch Chevy, Murdoch Hyundai, Intercap, Grip 6, the store, they could all use our services. And if they're people who listen to the show, then they're the people who we could use. Advertising, direct mail, they make boxes, they do custom printing, they do printed pieces for you, they get you your brand at a high quality, they do all your advertising for you. Your data is secure with them. So if you're Intercap lending and you're going to use Sunprint Solutions and use Sarah, they can do all your bank statements for you. They can do all of your financial statements for you. They can do all of your materials. They can do direct mail. They can do a showpiece for you. They can do the refinance letters that the government absolutely mandates. So really, frankly, Brock and Intercap should be using Sarah over at Sunprint Solutions. Wait 1 second. Oh, no, I think I'd screw up the show if I did that. So email Sarah at SARA, no H, at sunprintsolutions.com. That's Sarah at sunprintsolutions.com. Any printing, any marketing, any showpieces. They do incredible work. They've even done some work for the Utah Jazz, but she couldn't tell me what it was, so I'm going to guess. She said it was she just couldn't say. So I'm going to guess it was something important that she's done work for the Utah Jazz. All right. So that is Sunprint Solutions. Sarah at sunprintsolutions.com. Time for the questions on a live show. I've kind of hit the big things I wanted to hit on right there overall. By the way, the mid-range thing's really complicated right now because teams are hugging our shooters in a way they didn't do it last year, and they are hugging Rudy, and they're leaving the shot they want is to give up is the mid-range. And how, the defense is just giving it to you. It feels like you should take it. But I think everything's good in moderation, including mid-range jumpers. And right now, we are taking the 11th most amount of mid-range shots in the league. That's not great. San Antonio's off the charts at 44%. I don't know how they're going to survive. They have the 23rd best shooting team in the league. We're the 12th best shooting team in the league. We're taking the 13th most amount of shots at the rim, and we're taking the 21st most amount of threes. So we're going to have to find ways to get threes, hunt them. The one thing I think we're really short on is we're short on transition opportunities and transition threes right now. We're playing the least amount of, I don't know if that's true. We're playing the most amount of half-court possessions of anyone in the league right now. Actually, Detroit has now surpassed us, Dwayne Casey's team. So our offense is 24th in the NBA. We're 29th in half-court possessions. We're playing 83% of our possessions in the half-court, and then we're not getting offensive rebounds, so we're just not getting some of those early three opportunities. Quinn will solve this. I'm not too worried about it. All right, Team Money Bomb from Twitch says, hey, Locke. Hey, Team Money Bomb. Jason Goodswell, there's been a lot of talk about how yesterday the mid-range was. Do the numbers confirm this? People are going to talk about the mid-range all day, and I just trying to explain it to you that actually I would use yesterday as a day where everyone's visual on it is that, the mid-range was the key to win the game, and I would argue that while the mid-range was certainly important and you're going to use some of your shots in the mid-range, 33% is too many. You've got to try. Now, the key to this one is Bojan Bogdanovic was amazing going to the rim against Joel Embiid and was at the basket for absolutely awesome going to the rim and getting to the basket last night. And so we took 41% of our shots at the rim, which was key. Kyle Finneman, you guys are good. Like, I've opened the show on a bunch of things, and I'm going to the questions now, and the questions match. From Facebook, Kyle Finneman, why do you believe the reasons we're shooting less threes? Teams are hugging our three-point shooters. They're not Jay Crowder and Ricky Rubio anymore. We're finding out that some of the three-point shooting a year ago was conscious, that teams were willing to let them happen, but they're not letting Joe Ingles. They're not letting Bojan Bogdanovic. Royce O'Neal's going to probably have to shoot more. They're giving him that shot. Nate Peterson, it seems like Donovan's mid-range jumper is way better than his floater. I wish he'd completely get rid of the floater. What do the numbers show? Last night's numbers agree with you. He was 0-4 on the floater, and he was 50% on the mid-range. And I think there's something, I think he'll learn. He's just so good at doing this. Matt Moon, can you introduce me to future Sixth Man of the Year, Joe Ingles? David, how do you think the Jazz defense played last night along with the rebounding? I thought the defense was good. It wasn't great because you allowed so many free throws last night. So it was a good defensive game. It was not a brilliant defensive game in any way. There were a lot of things that they did really, really well defensively last night. And the rebounding was great. The defensive rebounding last night was right about league average against the number one team in the league. The defense last night was a 105.1. So that is actually our third worst defensive outing of the year. And our worst was against the Clippers. Our second worst was against Sacramento. So our last three outings are our three worst defensive outings of the year. But we're playing some fairly good teams. Philadelphia, even without Ben Simmons, is pretty good. We just haven't shot it great yet. We've actually only had one or two nights where we really shot it. We shot against Sacramento. We shot against the Clippers. We'll see if we can get some nights going where we're really shooting it again the way I think all of us anticipate and expect us to be able to shoot it. Let's see. Great call last night. Turned down my TV and listened to your broadcast. Love the energy. Thanks, Cody. Ron Boone was really great last night. You know what? We really this is not a contrast. Bowler and Thurl and Matt do great work. That's an Emmy Award-winning broadcast. Travis Henderson, Jeremy Brunner, Scott Rogers, and the crew back in the TV truck. They're world-class. You're really, really lucky in what you have. I just would say, feel free to listen to the radio. Like, watch them, but feel free to listen to the radio. Ron and I work incredibly hard to go to every practice, have great relationships with the coaches, know what's going on. Ron gave 3 tidbits right to open the show last night that were great. They change, and even if you're going to watch part of the game on television, if you're listening to Ron talk about those items early in the ballgame, it'll give you a better experience than what you'd had otherwise. So I would suggest trying that little radio thing every now and then. If you are a League Pass member and you have Alexa, by the way, you just subscribe to TuneIn, and you can then have the radio broadcast come to you live through the through your smart speaker. So it's kind of a cool thing for you there. I don't know if you think that's cool. Let's go back to the questions. We'll head over to the Instagram account here in a second. from Periscope, anyone who thinks Conley is over the hill hasn't been watching his defensive effort. I mean, Mike battled last night. You know what? The rebounding last night, and I don't think anyone ever doubted this, the rebounding last night showed you the care factor. That's what last night's rebounding really did. It showed you the care factor. Like, okay, we've been screwing this up. We've lost games. We really care. Let's go fix it. DJ Mean, look around the league. Is Miami for real? I thought they'd be bottom of the East. So I did not. I think I had them as fourth in the – I'll have to go back and check, and I don't want to be wrong on this and then act like, oh, I told you so, but I'm totally full of crap. I had them as fourth because I had them as the number one defense in the NBA, and that's where they are right now. So if you're a top defensive team in the league, if you're a top 5 defensive team in the league, you'll win a lot of games. Right now, the top 5 defensive teams in the league are Miami, Oklahoma City, the Lakers, Utah, and Phoenix. Interesting note on that, by the way, either because we're not very good offensively and they're all in the top 5, or part of the reason we're not very good offensively is we've played the number 2, the number 3, the number 5, the number 7 defensive teams in the league in 4 of our 8 games. The Clippers right now are Sacramento is 28th. We've played them twice and did not have 2 good games against them. And the Clippers are 17th. So we've played the 17th teams twice. We played the 28th team twice. We played the 2nd, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th best defensive teams in the league. It's actually kind of worth running some numbers to see how we are compared to average against those teams and whether or not maybe our offense is actually a little bit better, but we've just played really, really good teams so far. I mentioned Intercap Lending. I got another great email from someone. I mentioned Intercap because I was talking about how Brock and the crew could use Sarah at Sun Print Solutions. Well, guess what? More Locked On people are using Intercap, and more great reviews are coming back to me. I can't thank Steve Carter and Brock and the crews over at Intercap enough because it is so awesome for me that we have this Locked On Jazz community that, one, Intercap's just exploded since they started advertising with us, but that's because of the work they're doing. Hopefully we gave them some exposure and we help them become great as well. But the only way you become great after, we can advertise all we want, but the only way we become great is the fact that, they did the work. So Alexander Perkins emails me the other day and says, hey, by the way, I got a bunch of stuff. What's Steve Carter? Can I reach Steve Carter? That's exactly what I want. I want to make sure that you guys are using our people. Steve Carter's direct line is 385-800-8528. Tell Steve Carter you're with Locked On Jazz. You get the corporate discount that they've built for all of us. They've treating us like one corporation so that we get that. Jason Shepard, you might have heard him on KSL. He sent me an email recently. He says, you were absolutely right about Steve and Intercap Lending. After talking with Steve for the first time on September 30th, we signed our papers today on our refinance of our 1-year-old home in Vineyard in Utah County. This was on October 21st. Steve was polite, thorough of a guy and a lender I've ever dealt with. He answered every question, followed up every time he said he would, and did it all without being pushy one bit. He was fantastic. Our experience with him at Intercap was great, and we saved a nice chunk of money. You can do this with Intercap Lending. Intercap Lending is a fabulous company, growing, doing great work, and we're super excited to be partnered with them. And now I'll go get them to use Sunprint Solutions, and then everybody will be super happy about all of it. Intercap Lending, give Steve Carter a call and get the experience that all of our Locked On Jazz people can get. All right, let's continue with more of your questions. I love them today. They've been great. Let me scan through Instagram Live, DLock09. Can Spida and Conley get deeper on drives and do the Nash dribble? They both can, but as primary scorers, it's not their main thought process. They're not thinking to go there because they're thinking of how they're going to score. Rubio did it a lot. Nash did it a lot because they're not primary scorers. Why don't we use Bogey more as a ball handler at the end of games? Well, because we have Donovan. I mean, this is still Donovan's team. And there's a big deal, by the way. Let's not, if Quinn suddenly gave the ball to Bogdanovich late in the game instead of Donovan, that's a big deal. That would be a little tough for everyone to swallow. So I would say that you got to be a little careful with the dynamics on that. How concerned are you about Nang's defense while Ed Davis is out? -17 in 11 minutes is pretty scary. That's from our Periscope listen. Awesome destroyer. I am a little nervous. I love George. I don't remember. You know what? We were -9 compared to our regular when he was on the floor defensively last year, but I don't remember seeing it. I just saw it in the numbers. Yes, I'm concerned. I'm concerned with our overall bench play. This is what happens when you have $30 million players. It's also what Kevin Pelton wrote about in his preview. It's what John Hollinger wrote about in his preview. Like, this we were so bullish on our team that we kind of ignored this part of it. And, we were a team that for the last few years, we've talked about how incredible our 3 through 10 depth is, or 3 through 12 depth with guys like Raul Neto, who was fun to watch and was really good last night. We don't have that this year. I mean, Jeff Green was great last night. He had 6 rebounds last night. He had 3 in his previous 77 minutes. I mean, Jeff Green's really got to play well for us. Hopefully Dante comes back and gives us a little something, and maybe Dante takes George Niang's minutes. They're different players, but Dante plays the 3. George is really playing the 3. I'm a big George Niang fan. I like just kind of how he plays the game right. I like everything about his personality. I like his effort. But yeah, no, I think George is probably concerned about it too. I think the Jazz have potential 2 All-Stars this year, maybe 3 with Bojan, but unlikely they get 3 nods for it. I think they have 0. Because, Karl Anthony Towns, Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis. How's Rudy getting in? We have caliber players, but let's be honest about how hard it is to make the All-Star team. We got guys that are playing great and deserve great recognition and deserve to be considered. But, do I actually think any of them are going to make the All-Star team? The answer is no, and I think it's going to be an issue, by the way. I think these guys, maybe if we're 18-5 or something here where we're 5-3 right now. We somehow beat Milwaukee. We're 6-3. Milwaukee's Giannis is unbelievable right now. We go to 6-3, and then we have 7 games that are pretty winnable. We go grab 6 of them, and we're 12-4, and we're kind of rolling a little bit as we head east. And that's a hard trip because it's got Milwaukee and Indiana and Toronto and Philadelphia in it. Somehow we get 2 or 3 of those, and we're hitting December rolling, and we become a little bit of a national story. Maybe Donovan can get in, but even Donovan, with the Steph Curry injury, certainly helps Donovan. Klay Thompson's injury certainly helps Donovan. So maybe the numbers start to line up for Donovan. But, it's still hard, right? LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George is playing pretty soon. James Harden, Russell Westbrook. There's 5. Now, maybe LeBron's a front court player. I already got the 3 centers. That's 8. It's only 12 spots. So can Donovan get one of them? Sure, but have I forgotten other guys? Certainly. The fact that Golden State is opening up a bunch of spots for us is probably goodness. Bojan is an absolute stud. He is. That play late where they double Donovan, he flips it over to Bojan. Bojan can hit the 3. That's just not something Donovan could do in the past. And you knew it was going in. Did you see Donovan? Donovan raises his arms up and is before the shot even goes off. It was incredible if you see the replay. How tough is Royce? Watch out pumping him into the plane. That's what everyone has said about Royce. It happened to Ben Simmons last night. He runs into Royce O'Neal and his shoulder goes, which is not great. But if you actually talk to all the players who've ever played against Royce O'Neal, they actually say that. He's a brick. He's one of those guys you hit and you don't move. McCade PB says Donovan took 19 of his 23 shots in the mid-range. He was 7 of 19. Didn't he get to the rim more than that? Didn't he get to the rim a few times, or did he not actually get any shots off at the rim? What are the leaders in the league on mid-range shooting, and where's Donovan? That's a good question. I probably will not be able to grab that right now, but I could probably have that for you tomorrow. And I think what you'll see is Donovan's going to be near the league lead, and it's hard to even make the math work when you're that great. When you call a game, do you prefer being on the floor or high up at Vivint? I prefer being on the floor. You feel the game better. You make less mistakes. You're not as pulled away. There's subtle little mistakes I make that are just because of distractions. I missed Donovan's baseball pass to Ingles last night because I saw something else. Saw Josh Richardson grabbing his back. I think that's it's much better. And it's a better broadcast for you as the listener if I'm down on the floor like that. All right, a few more. What are the upsides and downsides to making half-court line worth 4 points? Actually, I talked to Brett Brown about this last night. We don't want 4 points. You actually need to make the 3 2.5. That's what would fix the math in the game. The problem in the game is that the three is this valuable. It's so much more valuable, 50% more valuable, that it's almost impossible to make the mid-range shot math work. And so therefore, it's almost like we need to change the 3 to 2.5 or the corner 3 to 2.5. And then the defenses would change a little bit and you'd probably be able to get more things. In the playoffs, the defense cracked down on three-point shots. If you don't have a mid-range game, you're not going to score. Okay, that is the belief. Is it true? I don't actually think so. It's probably worth running some numbers to find out. Did mid-range shots go up? Do you have to make those shots? I don't know that I actually think that is totally true. Thanks for all the questions. I got a ton more. You guys are amazing today. I'll go back through them after the show. Have some of them for you tomorrow. We'll get ready for the Milwaukee Bucks. Thanks very much. This has been Locked On Jazz, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. John Hollinger, hour-long interview on rejecting the screen with the guys. A lot of fun. Go take a second to listen to that. Thanks very much for tuning on Instagram at DLock09. Goodbye, Instagram. Thank you very much for tuning in on our Facebook, Locked On Live, Periscope, Locked On Sports, our YouTube, Locked On Live accounts, all of that. Thank you very much.